Starting out, you can see that we have an FDA approval letter here. It's very new, and it is from Willow. So they have it listed as a Gen 3. That's a little interesting. We already have a Gen 3, but okay. Either way, it's new approval, so there's something coming. Scrolling down, this is all the typical information that they need. This tells us that they are comparing it to the 2.0, even though we all know that is Gen 2. And then this gives us our description. We can go through, it all looks basically the same. The big difference that we already know is there is the mobile app and the Apple Watch that they have done. This is our comparison. It shows everything that they looked at from Gen 2 to the Gen 3. And you can even see that it says Gen 2 here rather than 2.0. But then they swap it to 2.0 later. Suction levels. You were at 60 to 245 for the Gen 2, they're claiming that now it's going to be at 40 to 245 mmHg. Max suction is staying the same at 270, same levels. Cycle speeds, those are going to be different. They've dropped the cycle speeds here. That could be an issue given that we've seen a lot of issues due to the fact that, well, slower cycle speeds, so moms don't always love that. A lot of people have complained about the collection volume. That is still staying the same there. Everything else is the same as far as parts that you're getting to use and what it's compatible with. So they're claiming that the Gen 2 was just pumping history, which is true, but this one they're claiming expands to giving you control of the pump. But the 3.0 already did that. So why do we have an FDA approval that's just now happening 3.5 years essentially since we got a pump? As far as parts that are different, it's stating that the suction levels, cycles, and the apps are all different but doesn't change effectiveness. Depends on who's arguing that. Plenty of companies have stated that, and plenty of companies would be wrong. I don't know, like Willow and their Gen 2 and Gen 3 and Go firmware updates all killed pumps. Gotta love that. Trying to get my little pin back. It's not working. Anyway, moving on. Comes through here, you've got a lot of the nitty-gritties. Tells you that they were doing testing over vacuum level, the use of life testing, battery performance, battery status indicator, so letting you know how much battery you have left. And it states that everything passed. There was no concern. So overall, exciting because anytime we have a new FDA letter of approval, that means something is coming. Sketchy because it's a Gen 3 for stuff that we already had. Why does this matter? Well, I'll tell you why. You'll probably see that Willow is doing a lot of things. This recently, ironically, whenever they got their approval kicked out, that they are now partnering with a clothes rental group to help you be prepared as you return to work and look fashionable. They're including office setting, after work socials, traveling for work, remote work, all these different things. They're basically letting you include what they picked out for you at like $65 a month. It was a big push for their chiller that they just did, even though it's not really, well, they call it a cooler. They can barely do that. But either way, we have some press going on here. They're trying to catch attention. They also started this whole Power Views docuseries thing where they're trying to like sell you on what motherhood looks like and everything else. Moms, just watch the video. Just watch the videos. That's all I got to say. We also have other news earlier this year, back in the spring, them with the Simply Fed, they started digging into the Pump Act that came out. I'm sure you've seen lots of folks and their takes on that. The fact that they are very bold about the Simply Fed thing is just kind of ugh. Anyone from our group that knows the nitty-gritty details knows that Simply Fed is also partnered with formula companies. This is a really big issue, just morally and ethically all the way around, because a pumping company is now sending you to a company to provide lactation support, but when they can't tell you how to fix it, then they'll just give you a formula coupon. But, you know, you just spent hundreds and hundreds of dollars on a pump. You kind of want it to work. Lots of just achy there. But the point is, they're doing lots of publicity stunts, lots of things to get their name out there. Reality is that other than their influencing and whatnot, when it comes to their marketing and the pumps that they have put out, they're really not holding the same reputation they used to. We have all this publicity going on. They're clearly preparing for a new pump. I'm still going to be concerned about it. And now we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of why. So, if my pen will work, that would be great. So, September 2019. If you were around for September 2019, you know that we already had Gen 2. Gen 2 launched in the spring of 2019, and in September of 2019, the big catch there was the fact that we got milk containers. Everybody was so excited about the milk containers. However, the milk containers let it slip that they were working on a 3.0 or a Gen 3. Sorry, they've changed the name so much. Anyway, on the boxes to the milk containers, it stated for Gen 2 and up. And so it made it very clear that there was more on the horizon. And at that point, everybody was kind of like, well, what's up with that? If we scroll down, again, it's the same paperwork that you kind of saw beforehand. This time they were comparing it to the original Willow pump, which was under the code name Athena. Now, Athena and the Gen 2 honestly weren't that different. They added the magnet clasp rather than the clips, essentially, for Gen 1 to Gen 2. The cycle and suction levels were all the same. Wasn't a big deal. The app was still the same. All you could do was see the history from what the manual sensor read, and that was about it. You didn't have control. There was only one simulation mode. It was pretty much the same. And then, as you can tell here, everything was basically the same, except for this. This claims that the 2.0 was given a mobile app. That's true, but we had a mobile app with the Gen 1. Gen 1 and Gen 2 were on the same mobile app. So, unless that is a significant difference, which, judging by the patents, it really wasn't, it wasn't a huge thing. This also shows that the container is now compatible, which we knew because they went to magnetic clips, or magnetic connections for Gen 2, whereas we had just the clips for Gen 1. That's why you could only use the bag. As far as sizes go, they actually came out with the 21s, I want to say in spring, or in September of 2019 for the very first time. And it was not compatible with the Athena. So right here on the paperwork, already a red flag. We see that they're noting material for the container. Of course, there's nothing to do there because, well, that didn't happen for the other one. And this is the information that really matters because it's going to tell you what is different about these pumps. So it's telling you right off the bat, you have a container or a milk bag, whereas before you only had a milk bag. Here we have firmware updates. The firmware updates is what changed it from 125 mmHg down to 105 mmHg in the simulation. If anybody that had a Gen 2 remembers, about 6 months or more before they released the Gen 3, they mass killed all of our pumps, mine included. Thankfully, I was skirting in just at my warranty time frame, and mine got replaced due to still having a warranty, but so many moms did not have a warranty. And that all happened because of that right there. Anyway, moving on. It notes the magnetic closures and it notes material differences. They claim it doesn't affect the effectiveness. Everything else was fine and dandy. Shows the testing that they were done. It passed. The original Willow pump was called the Athena pump. That was their little code name for it. As you can tell, this was a 2016 testing. They compared it to the Freestyle at the time. Lots of little similarities and differences all noted throughout here, but overall the pumps are really not the same. There wasn't a pump truly the same to test up against, so it passed. But as you can tell, let's see, they're talking about the cycle and the levels, or the suction levels there. It was a closed pump. They were all super excited about that. But overall, it didn't sit there and claim that there was a whole lot going on. It doesn't note any type of clips, magnetic closures. It doesn't talk about an app. None of that. No firmware updates. This was just the beginning of things. So why am I pointing all this out? Seems like a lot of time for nothing, right? The reason I point this out as everybody knows, Gen 1 and Gen 2 were not that big of a difference. The main difference was the closures. You had a clip versus a magnet, but Gen 2 to Gen 3 was massively different. We saw a lot of problems, a lot of changes in terms of what it took to be able to properly use the Willow pump and just be effective with it. Gen 3 came out the gate swinging with 3 stimulation modes. That was something everybody was happy about. It did not have app control at the time. Then later on, it gave us app control, but Gen 3 came out with a brand new app, basically was telling us that they fixed all the things of Gen 1 and Gen 2. Except, as you can tell, there's no FDA approval between 2019 and this year for a pump that launched in 2020. So, one of two things happened. One, either a 2020 pump somehow was being sold for 3.5 years before the FDA decided to catch on and be like, hey, we should test that, and approved it. Or, and what most likely happened, was Willow and all of their loopholes sold the Gen 3 under this Willow 2.0 FDA list. And this new Willow Gen 3 is going to be actually like a Gen 4. Moving right along, patents. Patents tell us a world of information. This is the newest patent that Willow has, all 137 pages of it in its glory. This one is actually out of Australia, and I'm not going to do all the details of the readings and everything. These are actually very in-depth. This is kind of more of a master patent, so it has a whole lot of information in it that honestly you're probably not going to be interested in. But this is like your flange tunnel. This is showing manipulating the tubing for the suction. So it's got its little systems that they've got broke down, because of course all of this is more nitty gritty. We see buttons on the side, how it's supposed to work. I'm trying to just kind of fast scroll through here. They're showing adapters to make possibly a bottle with this bag, different ways of collecting. I mean, this is a Mod Podge patent, so not all of this is going to make sense. When we get to the actual drawing of things, this is going to be a milk bag. Looks a lot like the Gen bags, right? It's showing that it would attach up here. You're going to put it to the breast. Again, a lot of this is screaming Gen pump. We've got buttons in different arrangements here. Bag is looking a bit different over here. Bit of a different for attachment. As you can tell, they're trying to stimulate like milk being in this bag and showing what that's going to look like. But basically, we have a new pump coming. I don't know about you. I don't know how to feel about it. It's not the best, not the worst. Currently, it doesn't look like it's going to come with anything new, to be honest, other than dropping speed. The problem with that is we dealt with a lot on the Gen 3 and then renamed to 3.0, but they keep changing the flex tubes. The changing of the silicone makes things respond differently. The slower it gets, we see the harder that the Gen 3 and 3.0 actually function. They've changed internal components, they've changed the flex tubes, they've changed the rhythm to how things work. And because of all of that, some moms are actually really sensitive to that. Some have reported it's like rattling their boobs off or rumbling their boobs off. Both. I mean, that doesn't sound really pleasant. Just going back, kind of refreshing on memories. They launched as a Gen 3. It was known as Gen 3. This was in January 2020. It was always that they launched it out in the spring, and then everybody was just really excited about it until it turned into a flop. So again, we have a 2020 article. We're calling it Gen 3. They were already talking about it getting more milk. That was selling everybody. Even the Willow website, whenever you go to the history of the Willow, they're talking Gen 1 to Gen 3, except when you click it, it brings you to the 3.0. They renamed it 3.0 basically when they did the software update and gave everybody app control. So you can read about their updates there. 2019, again, this was January of 2019, and they were excited in launching the Gen 2. This article states it as the 2.0, which is pretty interesting. Actually, none of us called it the 2.0 until after they renamed the Gen 3. Granted, articles can go in and edit things if needed. So just up to now, Willow has a history of doing sketchy things because we know that they killed the Gen 2 in mass murder right before the Gen 3 launched. The Gen 3 then went through a huge software update right as they renamed it to the 3.0, and because then we had the Go, which had all of its issues and its 19 million different software updates and firmware updates. And guess what? Those die at such a fast pace. You would be changing out your Go faster than you're changing out your Brawl, in all reality. It's awful. Willow is known for doing sketchy things. The FDA letters and approval is definitely something to raise your eyebrows out and what we're looking at. It all comes at a great timing because now we're looking at the biggest sale they have ever done at 25% off all their website. That's a huge deal. In the past, Willow has either done just their pump, a lower percentage for the accessories, or they wouldn't do them at the same time. But they are announcing a 25% off for their Black Friday. If anyone is not just up to date on the math there, that brings your Willow 3.0 down to $375, which is not bad for a brand new pump. And if you were to get the Go, which they increased the price on, that's a whopping $263. That's a pretty good deal. Tack on that Clyde warranty for the extra 2 years, you walked out with a steal on these pumps. Overall thoughts? Is it good? Is it bad? I'm not sure. It could go either way. It depends on if they fixed the stability and the shaking that we were experiencing with the 3.0 and their flex tube. If they finally got that nailed down, that could be a really good change. It might actually be really nice. Just be informed, be mindful of what you're buying this Black Friday, and hopefully this helped.